If you owe the IRS, you may feel extremely stressed out. You have no idea where to start because you can't pay this bill. Well, in today's video, I want to share with you some things that you absolutely need before you start negotiating with the IRS. Before I get into those things, let me introduce myself. For those of you that don't know, my name is Timalyn Bowens and I am America's favorite EA. As an enrolled agent, I'm licensed through the Internal Revenue Service to represent taxpayers just like you to handle your tax issues so you never have to speak to the IRS again unless you absolutely want to. When clients come to me, they usually are just so overwhelmed, have no idea where to start on negotiating their debt with the IRS. 1 out of 50 taxpayers have an IRS issue. So I found it kind of ironic that this information isn't already out there. Today, I'm going to share with you 3 things that you absolutely must have before you can negotiate with the IRS. Item number 1, you must be tax compliant. What this means is that you must have all tax returns filed at least the last 6 years. If you don't have the last 6 years of tax returns filed, the IRS isn't going to want to negotiate anything with you. Now, don't misunderstand me to be saying the IRS won't take any money from you, because they absolutely will. The IRS is never going to say, no, you can't pay us. But you can't negotiate the whole debt if we don't know what the whole debt actually is. So in order to be tax compliant, you have to have at least the last 6 years worth of tax returns filed. The second part of being tax compliant, in addition to having those tax returns filed, you have to be caught up with your estimated tax payments. Now, for my taxpayers who aren't self-employed, you make estimated tax payments from your paycheck withholding, whether that be you can have a pension paycheck, you can have the Social Security paycheck, or if you still work, the paycheck that comes from your employer. When you fill out that W-4 or I believe it's WP-4 for a pension, when you fill that out, you're telling your employer how much money to withhold when they pay you. This is how you make your estimated payments. You want to make sure that your withholding is right so that at the end of the year, you don't default whatever the arrangement is and you owe. If you're self-employed, you want to make sure you're making those quarterly estimated payments. That, combined with having the last 6 years of returns filed, is what makes you tax compliant. Okay? So that's number 1. Number 2, you want to know what you actually owe the IRS. You would not believe how many times a taxpayer comes and wants to negotiate with the IRS, but they don't actually know how much they owe. This is why I tell taxpayers that pulling your transcript is so important. You want to make sure that you want to have all the debt that you owe included into your negotiation. Otherwise, if you only have part of it, it's going to automatically default because then you have this other outstanding debt. Let me give you an example. I've had a taxpayer come to me wanting to negotiate with the IRS, and they told me that they owed $26,000. Once I pulled their transcripts from them, so they signed the 2848, which is a tax power of attorney, I got on the phone with the IRS and requested that their transcripts be sent to my secure mailbox. Once I did that and I actually saw what was going on, they didn't owe $26,000. They owed $51,000, and they had to file their 26 tax returns still. Had they paid me and I'd done all that work, it would have defaulted and all been in vain because we would have had additional money, literally tens of thousands of dollars, not included in that plan. So number 1, you want to be tax compliant. Number 2, you want to make sure that you know the amount that you actually owe before trying to negotiate. The third thing that I want to share with you today you want to have a Form 433A or 433F filled out. What these forms do is a collection of information, and it shows the IRS what you're bringing in terms of income, as well as what you have going out as far as expenses are concerned. Now, you and I, the typical taxpayer, our definition of broke and can't pay the IRS isn't the same as the IRS definition. They want to make sure that you have your necessities covered, and then after that, anything you have left, they want. Whereas, we want to do different things with our children, with our spouse or significant other. Maybe we just like to have hobbies. The IRS isn't going to allow all that. So what happens when you fill out the 433, it allows you to see what the allowed expenses are. And then I'll give you this one as a bonus. You want to make sure you have the list of the national standards for allowable living expenses. So what that means, it depends on the region of the country that you live in. You are allotted a certain amount of money for different expenses. For example, somebody living where I am in Louisville, Kentucky, let's say they have a one-person home, so it's just them that they're taking care of. That person is not going to be allowed the same amount for rent as a person that lives up in New York, because it's based on the region. So you want to make sure that you have that national standard out, so as you are filling out the 433, you know what the IRS is going to allow and what they're going to disallow. Because once you have that form filled out, you have a pretty good idea whatever you have left over. The IRS is going to look at that and they're going to see how much you can pay until the CSED expires. The CSED, which I've talked about in another video, I'll link it down below. The CSED is the collection statute expiration date. This is how long the IRS has to collect. So you may not be able to pay in full, but baby, you better believe they're going to have you paying until that expiration date. I hope this gives you a better understanding. If you want to learn more about what else you need, you can go to my new website. I'm so excited to share with you. It is www.americasfavoriteea.com and get my back tax negotiation checklist. Now, it doesn't have everything just because every situation is going to be different, but it is definitely the foundation of what you need before you go to negotiate with the IRS, just so you can have a good idea of what they'll accept and what they won't accept. Again, go to my new website, www.americasfavoriteea.com, and get your free copy of the back tax negotiation checklist. But before I leave you today, I don't want you to forget, number one, you need to be tax compliant, which means you need at least the last 6 years of tax returns filed, plus be caught up on your estimated tax payments. After we make sure that we're tax compliant, we want to make sure that we pull the transcripts. We want to know the exact amount that you actually owe, so we can get that all wrapped up in there. And then last but not least, number three, you want to fill out a form 433A or 433F so you know what the IRS is going to allow and what they're going to disallow in terms of your expenses. And again, your bonus was you want the national standards of allowable expenses. You can find this online just by Googling the National Standards of Allowable Living Expenses IRS. And it'll help you and show you in your region what the allowable expenses are for your family size. I hope you found this video to be beneficial. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one, you can go to www.bowenstaxsolutions.com, and there's a book now button, and you can book your no obligation tax relief evaluation call, and you will speak with me or a professional on my team to do an evaluation to see if we're a good fit to work with each other to help you solve your back tax problem. But you, my friend, have to take the first step and book that call.